Chi was an overweight, miserable, and utterly pathetic loner who had the misfortune of being ridiculed by everyone simply for his appearance. One day, the almighty deity of their world made a grand announcement, gifting every individual a special power before hurling them into a brand new realm. However, in the grand lottery of abilities, Chi was the only one left out, making him the continued subject of scorn and mockery. Once the mass teleportation took place, the deity lingered behind and granted him a unique skill, one that allowed him to consume a peculiar fruit, triggering an unbelievable transformation that turned him into an irresistibly handsome man who would later marry a goddess. As he stood at the pinnacle of his journey, he found himself questioning how his life had spiraled into such an unimaginable outcome. After being transported to this unfamiliar world, Chi was plagued by relentless hunger, enduring 5 agonizing days without a morsel of food or a drop of water. Just as he was about to collapse, he spotted a worm wriggling nearby and desperately reached for it. Before he could grasp it, something struck him on the head, and his blurred vision caught sight of an unusual fruit ahead. Analyzing it with what little strength he had left, the appraisal system identified it as the fruit of evolution. Skeptical, he figured it had to be some kind of scam, but his hunger left him with no choice. Taking a bite, he immediately regretted it and vomited. A mysterious voice echoed in his mind, announcing that the fruit's effects were now activated. Panic set in as he braced himself for what he assumed would be his last moments. But to his confusion, nothing seemed to happen. Wandering in search of more sustenance, Chi stumbled upon a group of monkeys energetically dancing around. Using his appraisal ability, he examined them but couldn't determine their exact level. The creatures eventually left their camp, revealing an abundance of fruits of evolution scattered around. Wasting no time, he gathered as many as he could and stored them in his inventory, along with the most potent recovery potions in existence. Meanwhile, his former schoolmates were assembled together, not one of them sparing a single thought for his existence. As the week passed, Chi continued consuming the fruits of evolution one by one, until only 2 remained. Just as he contemplated his next move, the omnipotent voice granted him even more power-ups. However, before he could relish in his newfound abilities, the monkeys returned, enraged that he had stolen their precious food. With astonishing speed, one of them lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. Struggling to recover, he hastily drank an elixir, but the monkey launched another furious attack, ready to devour him. Unfortunately for the beast, even the system itself seemed repulsed by Seichi's overwhelming stench.
Okay, I get it. Great. Of course he's gonna eat me now.
In a cruel twist of fate, his foul body odor proved lethal, instantly killing the monkey. In the aftermath, a treasure chest materialized before him, containing a book. As he flipped through its pages, the omnipresent voice echoed once again, declaring that his evolution had officially begun. The next thing he knew, his bloated, unsightly body was gone. Memories of his bones snapping and his flesh restructuring flooded his mind as he realized his transformation was complete. With his body now lean and refined, the system boosted all his skills by 1,000, elevating him to one of the most powerful beings in existence. Yet, despite all this, his level remained stuck at 1. Determined to progress, he set out to hunt monsters, eager to raise his level and advance through more evolutions.
Instant movement!
Armed with inhuman speed and devastating guillotine kicks, he tore through countless enemies. However, no matter how many he defeated, his level refused to budge. Frustrated but undeterred, he resolved to continue stockpiling treasures and unlocking new abilities. Along the way, he stumbled upon legendary daggers and delved into ancient texts detailing the history of the wolves. His evolution begins again, and after a grueling week of hunting down monsters, he finds himself with just 1 evolution left. Before he has a chance to rest, he is once again encircled by the same group of monkeys.
Hello, human.
A towering red-furred monkey steps forward and challenges him to a fight. Chi, still exhausted, asks if he can just sit this one out, but the monkey immediately refuses, citing his hideous appearance as the reason he must fight. Using his appraisal skill, Chi examines the red monkey and realizes that it is an immensely powerful monster. Worse, he's completely surrounded, with no clear escape. Before he can react,
Almost done. Say goodnight.
Hey! Whoa! What are you doing?
the red monkey slams a massive fist into the ground, sending shockwaves in every direction. Chi, however, effortlessly dodges using his insane speed. The monkey stares in astonishment, completely taken aback. This is the first time anyone has ever survived its opening attack. Up until now, every challenger had been weak and unimpressive. Seeing Saichi stand his ground, the monkey is suddenly smitten with him. The battle rages on, and Saichi attempts to launch a counterattack. But in an instant, the red monkey vanishes, only to reappear right in front of him.
Dangerous.
Tell me about it, gorilla!
My turn. You ready? Here's
Delivering a devastating punch that sends him flying across the battlefield. The sheer impact nearly obliterates him, leaving him clinging to life with only a sliver of HP left. However, instead of finishing him off, the red monkey steps forward and introduces itself as Saria. Confused, Saichi questions why a massive beast like this has such a delicate-sounding name. He responds by swinging his weapon at her.
Not again!
But Saria effortlessly leaps into the air, praises his technique,
skilled.
Oh, you really think that about me?
and then dives back down in an attempt to end him for good. Realizing that his death is imminent, Saichi makes up his mind. It's time to unleash his true power. Channeling his magical abilities for the first time, he prepares a grand attack, only to have water dump all over him instead. Before he can recover from his humiliation, Saria launches a relentless barrage of punches, each one pushing him closer to unconsciousness.
On board for the road.
As he teeters on the edge of defeat, memories of his classmates ridiculing him and calling him a pig flood his mind. In this moment of desperation, he understands that he must come up with an ability that can turn the tides of this fight. Just as the final punch is about to end him, Saichi makes his move. He raises his arms and unleashes a repulsive, putrid stench. Saria's fist stops inches from his face. Instead of disgust, she looks at him with admiration, declaring that she has decided to take him as her husband. Saichi, completely baffled, struggles to comprehend how his life has led to this bizarre moment. This is nothing like the future he imagined for himself. Saria takes him back to her home, offering him food and insisting that he eat. Saichi tries to reason with her, explaining that he is a human and that marriage between them would be absurd. However, the food is so delicious that all his arguments fade away. As he eats, he notices Saria carefully stitching up his tattered clothes with impressive skill, resembling the efforts of a devoted wife. Saichi jokes that if she ever wanted to be a wife, she should marry a gorilla instead. Weeks pass with Saichi trapped in Saria's home, unable to escape her persistent affections. Frustrated, he begins plotting ways to break free. Just as he starts formulating a plan, Saria interrupts his thoughts, bluntly stating that he is far too ugly for a human girl to ever want him. Since he already resembles a monkey, he might as well accept his fate and date one. You're a victim. At last, the long-awaited escape plan is ready to be executed. With Saria momentarily distracted, Saichi makes his move. But just as he slips away, a massive spider emerges from the shadows. Before he can react, Saria launches a devastating punch, sending the spider soaring into the sky. She turns to him, eyes filled with concern, and asks if he's unharmed. In that moment, Saichi realizes something. Saria truly cares about him. Throughout all of this, she's been looking out for him, worrying about his well-being, and yet, he's done nothing but push her away simply because they belong to different species. Meanwhile, in the depths below, a lone skeleton sits motionless, lost in bitter contemplation. As days go by, Saichi continues to spend time with Saria. However, one day, Saria makes a shocking confession. She has been searching for the fruits of evolution to give to her future husband. Saria then explains the true nature of these fruits. They grant their consumer the power to ascend to the pinnacle of their race. But there's one fatal condition. If they have already eaten even a single one, they will die. Without hesitation, she declares that she will personally eliminate whoever dared to steal them from her. Heart-pounding, Saichi immediately drops to his knees, begging for his life. But to his horror, his desperate plea only fuels Saria's determination to marry him. When he yells in defiance, adamantly rejecting the idea, she pauses and asks if he truly hates her. He hastily assures her that he doesn't hate her. With a bright smile, she declares that it's time for their wedding. The moment she steps away, Saichi seizes his only opportunity for freedom. Without looking back, he bolts into the dense forest, determined to escape once and for all. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, the god of this world has gathered all of Saichi's former high school classmates. He informs them that they alone possess the overwhelming power necessary to defeat the demon lord that threatens this world. However, despite their immense potential, weeks pass with nothing but relentless training. Their commander refuses to let them advance until they are fully prepared, making it clear that they would only meet a swift demise if they rushed headfirst into the wilderness untrained. Back in the forest, Saichi continues his desperate flight for freedom, but Saria has finally caught up to him. Sprinting at a terrifying speed, she charges forward like a rabid beast, her voice ringing through the trees as she shouts for him to stop. Saichi, refusing to be her captive any longer, taps into his instant movement ability and vanishes in a burst of speed, putting an enormous gap between them. Their chase stretches on until Saichi stumbles upon the entrance to a dark cavern, thick red mist seeping out from within. With no other option, he dives inside, the echoes of Saria's desperate scream ringing behind him. As he ventures deeper into the cave, his surroundings grow eerier by the second. Then, at the very heart of the cavern, he finds something, or rather, someone. A skeleton sits motionless upon a throne, its hollow gaze fixed upon him. Without moving, the skeletal figure speaks, its voice eerily calm. It welcomes Saichi, acknowledging the strength required to make it this far. Curious, Saichi immediately appraises the figure and is met with an unexpected revelation. The being before him is none other than a level Dark Lord. He questions how someone so powerful could appear so weak, but the Dark Lord merely chuckles and tells him to take another look. Upon checking again, Saichi's face drains of all color. He had been deceived. The true level of the Dark Lord stands before him. In the blink of an eye, the Dark Lord vanishes, appearing behind Saichi with his blade raised high, prepared to deliver a fatal strike. Time slows as Saichi braces for death, but before the sword can reach him, a figure rushes in. Without hesitation, Saria throws herself between them, taking the deadly blow in his place. Saichi catches her as she collapses, his hands trembling as he holds her dying body. She smiles up at him, her voice weak but filled with warmth, telling him that she is glad she arrived in time to protect him. Panic surges through him as he frantically shouts her name, promising to get her a recovery potion. But Saria only laughs softly, saying that she's just happy he finally called her by her name. Her voice begins to fade, but to Saria, Saichi was the only person who had ever treated her like a normal being, not just a monstrous gorilla. That was enough for her. With the last of her strength, she makes a final request. She asks him to keep smiling for her. The Dark Lord watches their tragic moment with nothing but disgust. But Saichi, filled with unrelenting fury, grips his sword with a new resolve. He turns to the Dark Lord, voice shaking with rage. Saichi vanishes from sight, reappearing behind the Dark Lord and clashing blades with him. His body moves on its own, fueled by sheer emotion. He bellows that Saria was the kindest soul he had ever known, a girl more wonderful than he ever deserved.
She was so kind and had the biggest heart that ever existed!
Oh my, it sounds like you and that gorilla actually...
As he fights, memories of their time together flood his mind. Every moment, every smile, every time she showed him kindness despite how he treated her. The realization crashes over him like a tidal wave, and in that instant, he shouts the words he never had the courage to say before, and as they do, a golden light envelopes her fading body. But Saichi has no time to process it. He conjures his magic, unleashing torrents of water at the Dark Lord, only for them to be devoured by the ominous void the skeleton commands. The Dark Lord sneers, telling Saichi to accept his fate, but Saichi refuses, his determination burning brighter than ever. With newfound strength, he vanishes once again, reappearing just before the Dark Lord and driving his blade straight through him. For the first time, the Dark Lord falters. A strange peace washes over his skeletal face, and instead of cursing Saichi, he thanks him. With his last words, he expresses gratitude for freeing him from this prison of loneliness. Before Saichi's very eyes, the Dark Lord's body begins to glow, and within the radiant light, he sees a vision of the Dark Lord reuniting with the one he had lost long ago. Together, they fade into the afterlife, finally at peace. With the battle over, Saichi rushes back to Saria, cradling her gently. She looks up at him with soft, tired eyes and whispers that she truly wanted to be his wife. Overcome with emotion, Saichi leans in, their lips meeting in a bittersweet kiss. Tears slip down her cheeks as she thanks him, her body glowing even brighter. And then, in the midst of that radiance, a miracle happens. When the light fades, Saichi stares in awe at the breathtaking girl before him. Gone is the form of the gorilla. Standing in front of him is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. She rushes forward, throwing her arms around him, asking if he recognizes her. The realization strikes him instantly. She is Saria. The entire time, he had been with the most divine goddess imaginable, and he never even knew. Together, they sit and read the tragic tale of the Dark Lord, reflecting on his sorrowful past. Saichi sighs, remarking that, at the very least, they had managed to reunite him with his lost love. They approach the treasure chest hidden in the depths of the cave, and Saichi hands Saria an outfit to wear, ensuring she's properly dressed. The godlike announcer's voice echoes once more, granting Saichi even more power-ups. Curious, Saria asks him what rewards he's receiving. He grins at her, shrugging as he tells her it's simply a gift from the heavens. The announcer's voice chimes in one last time, delivering the final piece of information. The sheer amount of experience he has amassed finally triggers his evolution. As his body undergoes transformation, his eyes sharpen, his voice deepens, and he grows noticeably taller. Excited by his new form, he attempts to flaunt it, but Saria suddenly looks as though she's about to burst into tears. Yes, definitely tears and not anything else, no matter what it may have initially sounded like. She insists that no matter where he goes, she will always be by his side. Before they can bask in the moment, a peculiar creature appears out of nowhere, interrupting them. It rewards them for defeating the Dark Lord, presenting them with what feels like an RPG-style travel set along with brand new outfits. Without warning, the two are whisked away by teleportation magic, landing in a vast, open field filled with lush green grass. Determined to begin their journey, they march forward toward the nearest town. However, their adventure is quickly interrupted when a random slime appears before them. Sachi doesn't hesitate. He delivers a single, effortless strike, instantly obliterating the weak creature. The moment it perishes, he gains experience, triggering yet another level up. A flash of light erupts from his body as his helmet suddenly morphs into a sleek black robe. As he inspects his newly evolved gear, a folded note slips out from within. He picks it up and unfolds it, reading a message from the ever-mysterious sheep. The note congratulates him on leveling up and explains that the helmet, now the robe, has adapted alongside him, serving to conceal just how absurdly powerful he is in comparison to the average person. Before he can process the information, the note promptly explodes in his hands. Shaking off the ridiculousness of the situation, Saichi and Saria proceed toward the town's entrance. Upon arrival, Saichi approaches a local man to inquire about the Adventurers Guild. However, the man immediately warns him to steer clear of the guild at all costs, hinting at something dreadful awaiting inside. Ignoring the man's ominous advice entirely, Saichi and Saria head straight for the guild anyway. As soon as they reach the entrance, Saichi attempts to open the door, only for it to slam shut in his face. His patience wears thin, and he contemplates resorting to more aggressive methods, perhaps even introducing a rock through their window if they don't open up soon. He pushes the door open once more. What greets him inside is pure chaos. The entire guild is filled with lunatics running wild, shouting, and behaving like complete maniacs. Saria peeks inside curiously, but the moment Saichi sees the mess before him, he instinctively grabs her arm, prepared to flee. Before they can escape, however, a towering figure looms over them. The guild master, an absurdly muscular man, flexes his enormous biceps, welcoming them in a booming voice. With each flex, he slowly forces them further inside the building. Once inside, the guild master calls over a woman to handle their registration. She introduces herself as Ares, the guild's receptionist. Seeing that everyone else seems to be having a good time despite the madness, Saria nudges Saichi to go ahead and register. Reluctantly, he agrees. As soon as he does, however, trouble arrives in the form of three burly men. The trio saunters up to him, eyeing him with mischievous grins. Without giving him a choice, they grab him, insisting that he step outside with them for a chat. Saichi quickly realizes that he has no say in the matter as they escort him out of the guild. They lead him straight to another man, a hulking brute with muscles bulging from every inch of his body. The moment they arrive, the men demand that Saichi remove his cloak. With no other option, he obliges, revealing his newly evolved, undeniably attractive appearance. The moment his face and physique come into view, then, to Saichi's horror, their eyes light up with admiration. They declare that he is far too good-looking to be left alone. One of them boldly suggests that he should develop plot with them, assuring him that he'll get used to it in time. What exactly do they mean by that? Without waiting to find out, Saichi activates his full-speed movement and bolts away from them. However, instead of discouraging them, his desperate attempt to escape only makes them more determined. As he sprints for his life, he hears their excited voices behind him, marveling at his powerful, muscular legs. The guild master is thoroughly impressed that Saichi managed to return after everything he went through. Most rookies don't even make it past their first encounter. With that, the guild master assigns them their first quest to earn money and introduces them to their superior, who will be accompanying them, Artoria. Saichi takes one look at Artoria and immediately admires her overwhelming laser blasters. However, Artoria isn't nearly as enthusiastic. She shouts at them, declaring that she has no intention of adventuring with them. The guild master, unfazed by her protests, reminds her that Saichi survived the bizarre bandits, meaning he can definitely withstand whatever catastrophe she brings. Begrudgingly, she gives in and formally introduces herself as Artoria the Calamity. With their party formed, they set off on their first quest, which takes them to an orphanage. As they walk, Saichi notices that Artoria keeps her distance, walking significantly ahead of everyone else. As they continue, a young boy dashes by but stumbles and falls. Artoria immediately moves to treat his injuries, but before she can do anything, the logs stacked behind her suddenly come crashing down. Saichi rushes forward to check on them, but to his surprise, Artoria seems completely unshaken, almost as if she had anticipated the accident before it happened. However, instead of relief, disappointment flashes across her face. They move on to their next mission, this time heading toward the ruins. But as soon as Saichi takes a step forward, the entire structure collapses on top of him. Artoria falls to her knees in despair. She blames herself entirely, as she always has. She has spent her life believing that she brings nothing but misfortune, even blaming herself for the deaths of her parents. She has chosen solitude, convinced that her very presence is a curse upon those around her. Just when it seems all hope is lost, a hand emerges from the rubble. It's Seichi's. Artoria immediately snaps out of her thoughts, but instead of relief, anger takes over. She furiously scolds him for acting recklessly and making dangerous decisions without proper guidance. His carelessness could have cost everyone their lives. After her outburst, she storms off, leaving Seichi standing there, watching her go. Meanwhile, back at the school, training continues. However, even after 5 grueling months, none of the students have shown any real progress in growing stronger.
And for our final test, we must find a dog to walk.
Cool. Easy peasy. You said no, not the wolf! Am I flying? Is she serious with this?
Don't worry, Seiichi. If it looks like you're in danger, I'll step in to rescue.
Later, the guild receptionist asks Seichi and Saria if they have a place to stay. Being nomadic travelers, they naturally do not. Hearing this, Artoria extends an offer to let them stay with her, and they gratefully accept. Their journey together continues, and during one of their stops, Artoria asks Seichi to collect herbs before they return home. While searching, he stumbles upon a group of 3 goblins engaged in a secret conversation about capturing humans. Seichi immediately interrupts them, but the goblins glare at him, realizing that he overheard their plans to overthrow the human world. Without hesitation, they declare that they must eliminate him. Summoning their trump card, they call forth a massive troll. The beast lifts its enormous arm and brings down a devastating blow meant to crush Seichi into dust. However, Seichi has been hiding a special ability all this time, one that allows him to take an opponent's attack and redirect the damage back onto them. The goblins, realizing they have made a horrible mistake, don't even bother fighting back. They turn on their heels and flee in terror. As they retreat, their superior confronts them, demanding to know why they disobeyed orders and ventured into the human realm. The goblins frantically explain that they only wanted to prove their worth and offer more assistance. They also reveal that they have successfully set up teleportation spells all across the realm, leading straight to the Black Dragon God's entrance. Their master is pleased by their evil deeds, but reminds them that disobedience must still be punished. Without hesitation, she brandishes her whip. Meanwhile, back at the guild, the final examination for Seichi and Saria is about to take place. Artoria has been assigned as their examiner. The day begins like any other, and their task seems simple enough: defeat a slime to complete their mission. However, just as they prepare to strike, the slime teleports away before their attacks can land. Artoria quickly notices that there are hidden teleportation spells scattered all over this land. She instructs them to head back to the guild, but in an unfortunate turn of events, she accidentally steps on one of the spells, triggering its activation. Without thinking, Seichi and Saria instinctively grab onto her, and the 3 of them are transported to an unknown location. As they regain their footing, they scan their surroundings in confusion. Seichi and Saria have no clue where they've been sent, but Artoria immediately warns them to stay close. She hands them a special stone, explaining that it will help them locate her if they ever get separated. Before they can even process her words, Artoria inadvertently steps on another stone.
Did that click?
Sorry, I must have stepped on something.
Causing a wall to rise from the ground between them. Seichi panics, throwing his entire strength into punching the wall, only to succeed in doing nothing but injuring his own fist. Meanwhile, on the other side, Artoria finds herself forced into a desperate battle. Bleeding from multiple wounds, she struggles against a relentless mummy. But even as the pain surges through her, she summons the courage to push forward, landing a decisive blow and cutting the undead foe down.
Here too, and here. Is this some kind of joke? How are we supposed to get out of here?
Determined to find her, Seichi and Saria frantically search for a way around the wall. During their search, Seichi stumbles upon a mysterious chest. He decides to ignore it entirely. It suddenly speaks, urging them to open it, before sprouting multiple limbs and lunging toward them. Without hesitation, Seichi crushes it with a single strike. Rummaging through its remains, he discovers a peculiar item, a ring of misfortune, capable of multiplying the wearer's luck by -2. As Saria inspects it, a sudden light glows from within her plot. Wait, no, the stone is now glowing red. At that same moment, Artoria has entered the lair of the dungeon's boss. A colossal dragon looms over her, welcoming her to her imminent demise. Seichi and Saria quickly realize that the stone only glows red when Artoria is in danger. Acting fast, they try to use the guide stone to pinpoint her exact location. However, Seichi, rather than focusing on a plan, simply resumes throwing punches at the wall. Back in the dragon's lair, Artoria is being brutally overpowered. But despite the insurmountable odds, she refuses to surrender. Even as blood drips from her wounds, she remains steadfast in her resolve to reunite with her friends. Suddenly, a crimson aura begins to swirl around her. She declares that she will show this dragon why she was given the name Calamity.
What's this?
Power erupts from within her, altering her form.
I'll turn myself into a raging calamity! Calamity Berserk!
With newfound strength, she hurls herself forward, charging toward her opponent. Frustration burns inside her, frustration at her own weakness. But she forces herself to press on, launching another fierce attack against the dragon. Her efforts, however, are met with brutal retaliation. The dragon's claw pierces through her chest, sending her body crashing to the ground. Lying there, her consciousness fading, Artoria's thoughts drift to Saichi and Saria. They were the only ones who had ever brought her genuine happiness since she had been burdened with this wretched misfortune. A deep breath rumbles within the dragon, and in the next moment, a torrent of flames erupts toward her. She closes her eyes and whispers an apology. But before the fire can consume her, she hears a voice. Saichi, he shouts, declaring that they have come to save her. The dragon, unfazed, prepares another devastating blast. But before it can strike, Saichi vanishes, using his instant movement to reposition himself. He tries to approach the beast, but its raw energy lashes out, keeping him at bay. Activating his appraisal skill, Saichi examines the dragon's level and immediately regrets it. He realizes that he is about to be utterly screwed. The dragon swings its mighty tail, and though Saichi narrowly evades, the battle is far from over. Before he can react, an unseen force grips his body. With telekinetic power, the dragon freezes him in place, and in the next moment, its tail slams into him, hurling him violently against the wall. Saichi coughs up blood and collapses, confusion gripping him as none of his abilities seem to be working. The dragon looms over him, declaring the battle over as he prepares to unleash his most devastating spell, Hell's Inferno. Saria urgently shouts for him to use the water spell he had used against her before. Summoning his legendary dagger, Saichi conjures a massive waterfall, drenching the dragon in a torrential cascade. Enraged, the dragon retaliates with a blast of searing fire. Saichi vanishes in an instant, activating his ultimate skill, Gale. Straining against the invisible shackles, he wills his body to move. The goblin-like announcer acknowledges his struggle, bestowing upon him the skill Intimidation Resistance. Meanwhile, Saria rushes forward, throwing her arms around him. Nearby, Artoria stirs, saved by Saria's healing herbs. But an escape route remains elusive. Determined, Saichi dashes toward the treasure chest, hoping to find a way out. Instead, his eyes land on the dragon's gemstone, its absurdly powerful stats catching his attention. Without hesitation, he consumes it, feeling a surge of magical strength course through him. Upon opening the treasure chest, he finds yet another black coat, channeling his inner Kirito once again. Just then, the reward's bunny materializes from a letter, promptly teleporting them out of the dungeon. Artoria regains consciousness and immediately yells at Saichi to put her down, only to quickly backtrack and apologize for dragging them into her misfortune. She reveals her luck stat, a staggering -1,000,000. But her bad luck isn't just a recent issue. It's plagued her since childhood, affecting everyone around her. Guilt-ridden, she apologizes once more for the trouble she's caused. However, Saichi dismisses her worries. Saria nods in agreement, offering her support as well. Several days pass, and Saichi searches for Artoria, who has been missing since then. He eventually finds her sitting among the rubble left behind from their test. Gently, he tells her that everyone cares about her and misses her presence. Wanting to lift her spirits, he pulls her into a hug, promising to stay by her side for as long as it takes until she can truly smile from her heart. Overwhelmed, Artoria bursts into tears. Later, she thanks him for his kindness, and Saichi wonders if there's a way to free her from her misfortune. His mind drifts back to their conversation about her lifelong streak of negative luck, and at that moment, he realizes the solution. Taking her hand, he slips a ring onto her finger. He explains that it is the Ring of Happiness, a magical item that nullifies her curse and flips her luck from a -1,000,000 to a +1,000,000. No longer will she be known as the Calamity. He reassures her that he will always be there to support her. Instead of relief, Artoria shoves him away and bolts. Saichi spends the next few days searching for her until he finally tracks her down. Mustering all his courage, he prepares to clear up the misunderstanding. Before he can say anything, Artoria speaks first, telling him that she understands. He didn't give her the ring because he saw her as bad luck. Saichi, unable to choose between the two, responds by pushing her back. Saria urges Saichi to accept Artoria. Though she feels a little disappointed that she won't have him all to herself, she knows deep down that she was never going to monopolize him in the first place. Saichi thanks Saria for being the best girl, A few weeks later, Saichi and Saria's peaceful meal is rudely interrupted by the guild master, who once again starts flexing his massive. After finishing his usual routine, he launches into a lecture about how horses can carry adventurers' heavy loads over long distances. Saichi listens attentively. Gussel reaches into his bottomless plot armor and pulls out a map, handing it to Saichi. The map marks the location of a stable where they can find a good deal on a reliable horse. Upon arriving at the stable, the owner assumes Saichi is there to find a horse for the Royal Cup, a brutal and high-stakes race where competitors ride their mounts through life-threatening courses for the chance to win extravagant rewards. He then leads them to the stable's top picks. The first is the Dragon Horse, a highly sought-after mount for adventurers. Next is the Deer Horse. Despite looking dumb as F******, it boasts the highest horsepower. However, a single slap is enough to ice-sky it permanently. The final option isn't even a horse. It's a female donkey, notorious for her violent attitude, which has made her unappealing to buyers. This donkey operates on a strict worthiness policy. The stable owner approaches her and taps her on the back one too many times. The donkey, now thoroughly fed up, snaps and begins mercilessly beating him to a pulp with her hooves. Watching this brutal display, Saichi suddenly wishes for a way to communicate with her. Right then, the appraisal system chimes in, announcing that he has unlocked the skill to comprehend all languages. Excited, he steps forward to test his new ability, only for the donkey to immediately launch a deadly attack in his direction, missing him by mere inches. She attempted to crush him again, but Saichi swiftly grabbed her legs and hurled her into the sky, forcing her to surrender. Defeated, the donkey, Lulu, pledged her loyalty to Saichi as her new master. The stable owner, still recovering from his coma-inducing beating, feebly tried to stop them from leaving. However, Lulu settled the matter by kicking him straight through the wall, securing their escape. For Lulu, stepping outside the stable was a thrilling experience. She instantly fell in love with the kingdom's sights but adored Saichi even more, especially after he treated her to its incredible food. On their way back, they encountered a distressed girl named May. She was being relentlessly pressured by fellow painter Clay Berger to enter the Cherisi painting competition, a prestigious contest set to take place a month after the Royal Cup. However, May lacked confidence in her skills and felt unworthy of competing. Saichi reassured her, sharing that he, too, was facing his fears by entering the Royal Cup. He promised that if he somehow made it into the top 3, he hoped it would inspire her to push past her doubts. May's eyes sparkled with newfound determination, resolved to pursue her dreams. Finally, the day of the Royal Cup arrived. Saichi, fully prepared, stood alongside Lulu at the starting line while his wives cheered him on from the stands. Lulu, on the other hand, had only one goal in mind, a massive fish feast. Meanwhile, the other racers were fixated on first place, which offered an entire day with the kingdom's most stunning Valkyrie warriors. Lorna, the Valkyrie warrior overseeing the event, fired a cannon to signal the start of the race. As expected, the dumbass F****** and G deer horses immediately dropped dead from sheer shock. Lulu, who had been brimming with excitement earlier, suddenly struggled to keep up. She had been so fixated on winning her meal that she skipped breakfast, leaving her too weak to perform. But Saichi refused to let her sluggishness ruin his goal of inspiring May. He pulled out a fruit of evolution and handed it over to Lulu. Instantly revitalized, Lulu bolted toward the other racers at an astonishing speed. One desperate competitor summoned a pack of Grade B Grand Wolves and a formidable Grade A Hell Wolf to block the path. But there was no way Lulu was letting anything stand between her and that mouth-watering Tambuli feast. Without hesitation, she launched herself into the air and crashed back down with such immense force that all the Grand Wolves were sent flying to their doom. As for the Hell Wolf, she charged at it full throttle, aiming directly for its snout. With a devastating impact, the beast was flattened against the ground, rendered completely useless. The remaining racers, having just witnessed the sheer brutality of Lulu's rampage, collectively decided that winning wasn't worth their lives. One by one, they forfeited on the spot, leaving Saichi and Lulu as the undisputed champions of the Royal Cup. Lulu was devastated. Her dream of savoring the delicious Tambuli had slipped through her hooves. Seeing her disappointment, Saichi sincerely thanked her for her efforts and promised to buy her some anyway. Overcome with emotion, Lulu collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Suddenly, a brilliant light enveloped her, and in an instant, she transformed into a stunning, completely unclad woman with two very noticeable assets. Saichi stood frozen, completely speechless. He desperately fought to keep his eyes from wandering toward her colossal plot cannons, Artoria, and Saria barged into the room. Their eyes widened in horror at the sight of their husband alone with a naked woman. Saichi frantically tried to explain that the woman was actually Lulu, but Artoria wasn't having it. She promptly smashed his head harder than he had smashed hers the night before. Saria stepped in to clear up the misunderstanding, reminding Artoria that she, too, had once been a gorilla until she ate the fruit of evolution and transformed into a beautiful woman. With this explanation, Artoria took a closer look at Lulu and, although still baffled, started to accept the truth. Taking things a step further, she even volunteered to take Lulu to the mall for a proper makeover. Once the initial awkwardness wore off, everyone gradually warmed up to Lulu's new form. However, their peaceful outing was abruptly interrupted when two Valkyrie warriors appeared out of nowhere, seized Saichi without explanation, and took him away. Meanwhile, in the demon world, the Demon Lord's daughter had summoned an emergency meeting with all the top commanders of the Demon Lord's army. She proposed something unheard of, a potential alliance with the Vimberg Kingdom. The commanders were stunned by the suggestion, as humans were the very reason demons had suffered for generations. Still, out of unwavering loyalty to the Demon Lord, they reluctantly agreed to follow her plans. However, not everyone shared the same sentiment. Kreis, the Demon Lord's right-hand man, secretly despised the idea and began plotting his own sinister agenda. Back in the human world, Saichi was escorted to Arkshell Castle, where he was expected to spend an entire day with the Valkyrie warriors. Meanwhile, Kanazuki and the other heroes had been transported to Barbador Academy. At the castle, Saichi was introduced to the leader of the Valkyries, Louise Balths, one of the greatest swordsmen in existence. Without warning, she asked if she could play with his sword. Saichi, more interested in getting the hell out of there, had no choice but to go along with her challenge. Before he could react, Louise drew her blade and launched a ferocious slash at him. With barely a fraction of a second to react, Saichi managed to evade her attack, but just barely. Louise grinned, genuinely impressed that Saichi had managed to dodge her opening strike. Not one to back down, she ramped up the intensity, unleashing a relentless flurry of attacks. The other Valkyrie warriors stood in awe, watching as Saichi skillfully evaded every single swing. As Louise leaped into the air, preparing to deliver her finishing blow, the system chimed in, announcing that Saichi had unlocked 3 insanely overpowered skills: adaptation activating, world vision, and reflexive defense. With these newfound abilities, he seamlessly countered Louise's attack and pointed the tip of his sword at her throat, signaling her undeniable defeat. The entire Valkyrie squad was left speechless. No one had ever managed to best their esteemed captain before. Accepting her loss, Louise stepped forward, knelt before Saichi, and called him master. Later, she apologized for her aggressive behavior and opened up about her past. She had wielded a sword from an early age, but as her skills grew, so did the distance between her and her peers. People feared her strength, leaving her with no true companions. For the first time, in Saichi, she had found someone strong enough to acknowledge her without fear. Saichi, however, quickly shut down her questionable choice of words, telling her to just call him teacher instead. As soon as he said it, the system rewarded him with the instructor skill. Before they could begin training, a piercing scream echoed through the castle walls. A panicked servant rushed in, reporting that an intruder had infiltrated the castle and attacked the king. Louise and the Valkyries immediately rushed to handle the situation but blocked Saichi from following, dismissing him as an outsider. Unfazed, Saichi activated his world vision skill to locate the intruder and decided he wasn't about to sit this one out. Using appraisal, he checked the assassin's stats and was completely stunned. The so-called intruder was just a 1-year-old girl named Alaga Chimera. Before he could process what was happening, the tiny assassin burst through the roof, spotted Saichi, and hurled her daggers at him. Reacting on instinct, he effortlessly caught the blades with one hand. Then, without warning, his reflexive defense skill activated on its own, forcing him to fling the daggers right back at Alaga, pinning the tiny menace against the wall like a misbehaving dartboard. Once Saichi confirmed that Alaga was unharmed, he exhaled in relief. However, the tiny assassin wasted no time in shaking off the attack, freeing herself from the wall, and charging at him once again with a flurry of strikes. Effortlessly dodging each of her blows, Saichi swiftly knocked her unconscious with a precise chop to the neck. He then carried her over to Louise and the Valkyries, who stood in stunned silence. She revealed that before getting caught, Alaga had already used a legendary weapon, the cursed knife, on the king, dooming him to an eternal slumber. Seeing the warrior's devastation, Saichi couldn't help but sympathize and resolve to find a way to help. Later, when he returned to his dorm, Saichi was floored upon realizing who the king actually was. the friendly old man from the coffee shop who had casually given him relationship advice on making up with Artoria just last week. This sudden revelation made him question if he had shown the guy enough respect. Before he could spiral further, Florio Balths, Louise's older brother, appeared, desperately pleading with him to heal the king. The problem? This world had no existing spell capable of curing curses. That meant Saichi had to make one from scratch. Activating his magic creation skill, he focused all his energy on developing a counterspell.
Everything I'm picturing comes from nightmares and fairy tales! This isn't helpful.
To nullify the effects of the cursed knife.
To visualize the king's health. Get better, get better, get better! Get better, get better, get better, get better, get better, get better, get better! It just slipped out of my mouth!
Invert magic, get better, has been created.
Huh?
Within moments, he successfully crafted a brand new spell, Invert Magic. Upon casting it, the curse of eternal slumber was reversed. When the king awoke and learned that Saichi was responsible for his miraculous recovery, he insisted on granting him anything his heart desired. Saichi, however, simply waved him off, declining the offer with his usual humility. Meanwhile, over in the Kisir Empire, Zakia found himself questioning why the king had suddenly decided to send their heroes to Barbador Academy. However, it wasn't actually the king's doing. The real culprit was a sinister mastermind named Helio, who had secretly enslaved the heroes using enchanted bracelets. The revelation enraged Zakia, but before he could act, a high-speed arrow came flying toward the king. Reacting instantly, he sliced the arrow clean in half with his sword. With a deadly calm, the king ordered him to hunt down the assassin. Back at Arkshell Palace, Saria and the gang decided to surprise Saichi with a visit. However, Artoria quickly lost her sh*t when she realized Saichi had added yet another girl to his harem. Ready to beat his face in next week, she had to be restrained while Saichi frantically explained that Louise was just his apprentice and nothing more. After the tension settled, they all introduced themselves. Florio, after getting a full view of Saichi's ridiculous relationship status, took a step back, stared, and finally blurted out. Meanwhile, Lorna was suited up and ready to deploy every BDSM technique known to man to make Olaga spill the truth. Unfortunately for her, the little assassin was built different and resisted all of Lorna's psychological torture. So, naturally, Lorna took it up a notch by tormenting her with food. With her hands and mouth bound, Olaga could smell the delicious aroma of a freshly made meal, but could do absolutely nothing to eat it. The suffering was real. Hearing this absolute madness unfold, Saichi couldn't take it anymore. Without a second thought, he kicked down the damn door and shut the interrogation down. Louise, clearly pissed, scolded Lorna for taking things too far before gently removing Olaga's blindfold. As soon as Olaga saw the food laid out before her, Saichi urged Olaga to dig in, but she just stared at him, completely stunned that they'd even offer her food after she literally tried to assassinate the king. Louise, however, noticed the collar around Olaga's neck and immediately recognized it as an enslavement collar. She explained that whoever wore it was forced to obey the commands of the one who placed it on them. Saichi, ever the problem solver, asked, "Why not just rip it off?" Olaga silently answered by demonstrating. The moment she tried to remove it, she was struck by a brutal bolt of lightning. Seeing this, Saichi decided to create a spell using his magic creation skill to break the collar's hold over her. However, he struggled to find the right concept. Then, suddenly, a vision of a bearded man in a top hat appeared in his mind. Abraham F***ing Lincoln, ***, the ultimate symbol of freedom. With this mental image, Saichi crafted a brand new spell, and with a single incantation, the collar shattered into dust. Olaga immediately burst into tears, finally free after so many years of bondage.
That's not quite the reaction I expected.
Saria rushed forward and wrapped her in a comforting hug. Once she calmed down, Olaga shared her story. She explained that when she was younger, her people were persecuted by the Kaiser Empire simply for being beast folk. Separated from her mother at an early age, she was forced into the life of a deadly assassin. Despite her hardened exterior, guilt was clear in her voice as she finished her tale. Saichi, however, quickly reassured her. "You're not a bad person, Olaga. You were manipulated by the Kaiser Empire, but none of this was your fault." Later on, Saichi continued training to control his monstrous magic power. However, in his attempt to unlock the control skill, he somehow F***ed up and got endless hell instead. Before he could process this horrible development, two familiar faces appeared, Gussel, and Eris. They introduced him to the legendary holy mage, Barnabas, known as the greatest magician of all time and the principal of Barbador Magic Academy. Their discussion about the Kaiser Empire's heroes infiltrating the academy was cut short when a guard burst into the room with urgent news. A massive horde of monsters had been spotted near a neighboring village. With the threat approaching the kingdom's walls, adventurers scrambled to prepare for battle. Olaga stepped forward, determined to fight alongside the people she cared about. However, Saichi placed a hand on her shoulder and told her, "Don't push yourself too hard." As the battle began, Gussel took the lead, launching himself from the wall, rallying the other adventurers as they charged headfirst into the fray. However, the holy mage stopped Saichi, telling him to hold back and observe. On the battlefield, Gussel, Ares, wielding her ever-faithful whip, the Rose Clan, and the other adventurers unleashed their signature moves, tearing through the enemy lines. Then, in a completely unexpected twist, the cafe owner appeared out of nowhere and slashed the Beast King. Saichi, understandably horrified, thought he was witnessing a betrayal, but the Beast King merely grinned and brushed it off. "Relax, kid. I'm actually a legendary assassin." "Saichi, excuse me, what the actual F***?" Saria activated gorilla mode and delivered a devastating gorilla punch that sent a monster flying. Artoria froze her opponent solid using her ultimate grade ice spell, turning the poor creature into a glorified popsicle. Lulu unleashed a whirlwind of kicks, while Olaga slipped through the chaos, skillfully assassinating every monster in her path. Not to be outshined by a bunch of younglings, the holy mage decided it was time to flex. He cast Chaos Rain, drenching the battlefield in pure destruction. Still not satisfied, he upped the ante with his ultimate AoE spell, Chaos Tornado, wiping out the majority of the enemy forces. With their combined efforts, Saichi felt certain of victory. But then, his world vision skill kicked in, revealing something terrifying. A second horde of monsters lay hidden in the depths of the forest. This one was twice the size of the first, and every single creature in it boasted an S-rank power level. This was it, the final battle, the one that would decide the fate of the kingdom. Unfortunately, none of their previous attacks had any effect. Saichi knew he had to create the ultimate spell. He envisioned an apocalyptic-level attack, one that would wipe out every last monster from the sky, as if it were divine judgment. He cast the spell. Nothing happened, or so he thought. At that moment, his magic creation skill activated a brand new ability, Judgment. Curious, he appraised his new skill and discovered something insane. God's judgment would obliterate anyone or anything that Saichi recognized as an enemy. Within seconds, the battlefield was cleansed. As the dust settled, victory was theirs. The entire army erupted in cheers, their shouts of triumph echoing across the land. Then, in a brilliant spectacle, the light from the fallen monsters surged into Saichi, leveling him up hundreds of times over. Saichi barely had time to process this massive power boost before noticing something strange. The system voice, which had previously spoken like a shady used car salesman, was now speaking politely, almost reverently. It congratulated him and informed him that he had unlocked a ridiculous number of new skills. The king approached Saichi, commended his efforts, and then took his leave. Finally, Saichi's friends rushed over, relieved to see him alive. Then, out of nowhere, the holy mage leaned in expectantly. "Me too." The holy mage quickly apologized for his sudden enthusiasm, then got straight to the point. He wanted Saichi to join his academy as a teacher. Saichi, understandably skeptical, asked why. The commander explained that the wide-range spell Saichi had cast on the monsters was the most powerful ability he had ever witnessed. Even with that massive ego boost, Saichi turned him down. He wasn't about to leave his friends behind. But the holy mage, ever the smooth talker, countered immediately. Saichi's entire squad could come with him. Saria? Perfect student. Artoria? Plot-filled teacher. Lulu? Martial arts coach. Olaga? Maid. Because apparently, someone had to fill that role. Saichi had no real objections, and the girls were more than happy to follow him on this next adventure. And just like that, he was heading back to school. But before the semester began, he took Lulu out for her favorite meal. He went to watch a movie with Artoria, and when it was Saria's turn for a date, she asked if she could bring Olaga along since she always got left out. The day turned out great, and Saichi and Saria were both happy to see Olaga finally having fun. Then, as they stood over the river, Saichi thanked Saria for loving him and finally told her that he loved her too. Those words hit her hard. Saria started crying. Nearby, some kids called Saichi over to play, and as she watched him with them, Saria realized something. She was the one who should be thanking him. As the games continued, a balloon suddenly came drifting down from the sky. Saichi's eyes widened. He recognized one of the girls in the distance. Before he could react, an announcer's voice rang out, declaring that the painting competition was about to begin. The judge was introduced, none other than the infamous Master Leon Berger. That name sounded strangely familiar. The first contestant was announced, Clay Berger, a kid with a long history of winning art competitions. Clay unveiled his painting, and the crowd fell into an awkward, dead silence. Saichi took one look at it and immediately understood why. Finally, it was Mei's turn. She stepped forward anxiously, clutching her canvas as the whole crowd watched. As soon as Mei unveiled her painting, Saichi froze. It was breathtaking, a stunning portrait of him, depicted as a legendary warrior of old. She described the man in the painting as her hero, and Saichi's ego inflated so fast that his ears started burning and itching. After the contest ended, Saichi congratulated Mei on securing first place. She then revealed that Leon had extended an invitation for her to study. She felt sad about leaving. Saichi, ever the mood lifter, tried to cheer her up. Mei then made a bold promise. Meanwhile, Louise and the Valkyries finally returned to the capital, only for Louise to be crushed when she heard that Saichi was leaving for the academy. She wished she could follow him. Saichi, however, quickly shut that down. Meanwhile, in the shadows, the demon lord seethed with rage. Cries had failed him yet again. Cries groveled for forgiveness, but at least had an update. The apostles were gathering despair to sustain the demon lord. But it wasn't enough. He demanded more. More despair, more death, more misfortune, more chaos. Cries was at a loss. Where could they harvest such darkness? Then, Ingria and Lister spoke up. There was one place ripe for destruction. Arbiter Magic Academy. Back in the kingdom, Saichi, Saria, Artoria, Luluan, and the Holy Mage were preparing to depart. They bade farewell to everyone, and as they left, Saichi reflected on all the memories and fun experiences this town had given him. It had been a warm and welcoming home, but now, a new chapter awaited him. The Holy Mage soon informed them that they were nearing the academy. Saichi wondered what kind of life awaited him at school. Then, a mysterious figure suddenly landed on top of their carriage. Striking an overly dramatic pose, he introduced himself. I am the hero of justice, the garland of certain victory. Saichi stared. He sighed. His school life was going to be *ing awful, **. But at least, all the girls would be with him. Watch this next video. Till next time, my fellow legendary plot masters.